Hey YouTube, what's going on? This is Joking Comic Center, and this is the first time I'm doing this type of concept video, I believe. This is gonna be a wrap-up video of what I've read in the month of September. So I waited until the end of the month just so I could be sure that I had all of these read within the same month. So October is here and I'm gonna wrap up what I read in September, so stay tuned. And yeah, there's a lot of books here, or it differs. It's about 15 books that I've read this month, and it's all in between weekends and everything, and school nights, and on bus drives, I guess. So I get a lot of reading done during those as well. So let's see here. I'm gonna start off just with how it's piled up here. There's no real order or anything in which I got them all read. So the first one here is the Superman Batman Omnibus Volume 1, which has a lot of creators works within it. It's Jeff Loeb, of course, and then Alan Burnett, Michael Turner artwork, Ed McGuinness artwork. I believe Ed McGuinness is an artist, at least, yes. But when it comes to this omnibus, I bought it because finally we get more material added into a hardcover collection other than the absolutes. So that's why I bought this, and a second volume would complete this series of Superman and Batman. But after having read this, I do not want to buy the second volume. This was a huge disappointment actually, as soon as they switched from the Jeff Loeb writing team. He had two artists with collaboration with him, of course, the late Michael Turner, and yeah, it just wasn't the same. Jeff Loeb's writing is really what made this work for me in the beginning when I bought the two absolutes, but the second absolute never really struck me as good as the first one, and this collected more material even after that, so that's why I bought it. But this is why I kept volume 1 of the absolutes, because I'm gonna sell this. It just wasn't an enjoyable read after the Michael Turner, Jeff Loeb Supergirl story arc. So yeah, that's one omnibus. At least some new material has been read. That was a long time ago actually. A lot of these things that I've read are reprints or republished stuff in other formats that I've read in another format before that. So when it comes to this one, Wonder Woman, the new 52 run, I read this in the absolute size before I sold them, and then bought this one because it's more of a compact collection and one less book within the collection. And I enjoyed this. As I've done previous times, I think the first time I read it actually was the most epic one. But now I've read this 3 times and it's still a very, very good story. And it's actually more of a Greek god story, more than Wonder Woman story, but she is thrown in there and her own origins and her story is taken up within these pages and introduces something new to the new 52 Wonder Woman. And as I said, if you're into the Greek gods mythology, you would really like this one, I think, because you get, let's see here, Ares, Zeus, Hera, Aphrodite shows up. They make a funny thing with her panels. Hephaestus, Poseidon, did I say Hades? There's a whole bunch of them in here. I believe if you're new to Wonder Woman, this is a very good start point, actually. Yeah, it's 2 omnibus so far that I've shown you. But actually, I read 2 more this month. And I'm gonna talk about this one. Why the Last Man omnibus, This is the complete Why the Last Man series, all collected in one hardcover, and it previously took up 5 deluxe size editions for me on my bookshelf, so I see this as an upgrade to have the whole collection all in one, because whenever I would read a volume series that took up several volumes, I always found a way out, because when technically after reading one volume you're on a break and you can start reading something else. But if it's all collected in one book, you kinda keep on going without getting that break of finishing a book, but you didn't really finish off the series. So that happened to me with Irredeemable. Half year ago I started reading volume 1, but then and it's amazing and everything, but then I never picked up and read volume 2 because other books came in and everything. But if it had all been collected within one omnibus, I think I would have kept on reading it until the end, instead of getting that illusion of a break in between volumes. But yeah, Why the Last Man, this is the second time in my life that I've read this series, and it got an even harder impact on me this time. And knowing how it all ends with everyone's stories and everything, I got a better and clearer picture of it all, and I would say I got a lot more emotional about the characters this time around. So this was an enjoyable read. I had forgotten several things upon the last issues, and that was really a joy to get to feel the same impact once again. So I don't know, maybe in 3 or 4 years rereading this again, I hope I can get that same sensational feeling. That is why we keep our books, to get the same impact over and over again. So yeah, that's Why the Last Man. I think that is the most emotional I'm gonna be about the story, at least during this video. Let's see here. During my bus rides from this town to the second one where I study, it's about a 30 to 40 minute bus drive, and as long as you have something to do, that's not a problem, in my opinion. So of course I carry with me some of my books, or one book at a time. So I've carried with me the Dark Horse Library Avatar The Last Airbender editions books. Yeah. And this is actually the latest one, Imbalance. But I also, let's see if I can get them all in this right order here. Of course, I started off with reading Avatar The Last Airbender, The Promise. This would be considered volume 1, even though they don't print the volume numbers. They had just published these in the chronological order that the stories takes place. And reading all of these next to each other, each and every day, each and every week during this month, has really made these stories better for me, because when I read them when they were published separately within months apart, you always forgot some of the stories and what has been said within the previous volumes, but that then is taken up again on the later ones, because I never reread before reading the new ones during that time. So this is actually the second time that I've read all of these volumes that I'm going to show you, except for Imbalance, for the second time. So that was The Promise. It takes place right after where the Last Airbender series ended with the animated series. And then the second volume, which is, I believe, the most popular one with a good cause, and that is The Search, which it is the search for Zuko's mother. So I guess this is the must read if you want to know what happened to her. And then we have The Rift, library size edition. Show you backgrounds on some of these ones. And the Rift wasn't something that stood out for me, but reading them, as I said, neck to neck to each other really made it more of an impact. Smoke and Shadow. And then North and South, which I really enjoyed now the second time around. I thought I was gonna sell this at one point, but no, gotta keep them all. Have a complete collection, even though I don't see myself as a completionist nowadays, but these books truly make do for it. And last, of course, Imbalance, that I showed you first. So that pretty much was all read during bus rides. And another book that was read before those was a novel. I actually do read pro novels now and then whenever it published something that I would enjoy. And what we have here is Superman Dawnbreaker by Matt de la Peña. And reading this, I got back to the Smallville times once again. At least that's the actor playing Clark Kent in the Smallville series. That I had his voice in my head the whole time reading this, and I've read all the other published volumes that goes along with this type of young adult universe with Wonder Woman and Bruce Wayne and Catwoman. Can't get a focus on this, of course, but I have read those several volumes. These are the DC Icons pro novel series, I guess. I haven't seen, I believe they're gonna do a Black Canary one, but I don't think I'll pick that up because I don't think I would enjoy it, because I've never dived that deep into the Black Canary and the Birds of Prey and all of that. But this was a enjoyable read, and yeah, it's always interesting to get into the mindset of Superman, in my opinion, and Batman. That is why I bought these. On Aquaman or The Flash, I would definitely read those. So yeah, maybe it'll happen. And what more? I'll show you the last omnibus that I read, and this was actually the first one that I finished during this month, and that's probably because I started reading this in the end of August, that should be said, but it is the SpiderMan by Roger Stern omnibus, and this one is getting a reprint for anyone who is interested, and this was a solid read. I've already done a review of this actually on one of these Swedish Facebook group pages where we discuss comics and everything, just like all of you, but we delve into more of the Swedish published comic books, I guess, also. This collects all of Roger Stern's work, as far as I know, and it's about half and half of this Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man. You get stories like Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut, and of course the introduction of Hobgoblin, which you can see on the front here. And yeah, it was a really fast read during the end where Hobgoblin is showing up in the series, and it really has matured during this time. I'm actually in the middle of a Spider-Man reading marathon right now, and this is book 5 in that reading marathon, having previously read the 4 The Amazing Spider-Man omnibi that has been published. So eagerly awaiting to get Ben Reilly Omnibus Volume 2 to the collection, and then I can read on right through till the end of Dan Slott's run. That is basically the plan, at least, but who knows when those books will actually show up within these videos, because I read other stuff also, just to have a palate cleanser, so you don't only have Spider-Man books each and every week. And see here. We have some more Marvel books. We have the Star Wars Darth Vader books. And this one actually had new material for me. This one I reread just to get the whole picture of a run. And it's good. It's good. It's not as good as Gillen's run on Darth Vader though, because Gillen dwelled into the mind of Darth Vader a lot more than Charles Soule did. But I still enjoyed it. It's more action-packed, I believe. That is my first impression of this series, at least. Gillen's was more, like I said, psychological, and both contributes good stuff to the Darth Vader character. And I'm also in a Star Wars watching marathon, and it goes so. Just finished Attack on the Clones, so the harshest part is over, unless you count The Last Jedi. But yeah, 3 more books to go, and I'll start with 2 of them, which is in the same slipcover here, the Doomsday Clock, of course. So I finally read Doomsday Clock, and not much of it was spoiled for me. This was fantastic. I don't think I've spoiled anything on these previous books, but I do want to speak about these books, but I'm not going to spoil anything, so you don't have to worry. But if you are a fan of Watchmen, maybe you would like this. I did, but I've already read Watchmen once. I've watched the movies several times, and of course the HBO show. But then DC comes out and publishes something like this, and it still works somehow. Jeff Johns is King Midas. In my opinion, everything he touches is gold, or at least the things that I found, but I'm sure he'd written some questionable things during his time. But I don't know. If you enjoy Watchmen and want to dive into more stories, and if you're a DC fan as well, you should read this. Nothing is essential, but I know that I like this one. And speaking of Jeff Johns, the last book that I finished for September is also a reread, but I think once again stronger impact than the first time that I read it. And that is EarthOne by Jeff Johns and drawn by Gary Frank. The very same team that made Doomsday Clock. And of course it was just because I read Doomsday Clock that I was thinking, hey, that team is excellent. I should reread this. And of course, we're all waiting for the Batman with Robert Pattinson to be released. And I do believe that it is heavily influenced by this series. There are several lines and shots that I recollect in this book with that trailer that has been released, and it's just awesome. And of course a contemporary story within its own universe with the EarthOne books. So I believe it's actually, I only saved EarthOne, Batman and Superman as of now, because I felt the other stories were lacking. Even the Grant Morrison Wonder Woman, just because I prefer the Brian Azzarello story arc. But yeah, that is my wrap up for what I've read within the month of September 2020. And yeah, tell me what you think about these books, if you've read some of these books, and why you like Doomsday Clock when you read it. And I'll see you all in another video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.